the travels, I think for those of your listeners, I think traveling is really important because it opens our eyes. And if we think like an anthropologist, I think that's the English, right? It's like learning about how people live. And if you have an open mind, you actually learn quite a lot. You know, you think like a kid, a 5-year-old kid, start to be curious, and you will learn a lot. In fact, a lot of ideas comes through observations and through travel. Yeah. But that is it's a mindset.
The following is a long open conversation with Peter Wee, angel investor and startup mentor at NEXEA. We got the chance to sit and talk about many topics, like his unique journey from accounting to venture capital, his ventures across England, Malaysia, and his regional efforts through the Malaysian Business Angel Network. This is On the Lawn with FVR podcast. If you like this thing, feel free to like and subscribe and to contribute to the channel on the description below. And now, your featured presentation. I'm gonna be here.
So I was just talking to the camera.
Yeah, you can talk to the camera, or you can talk to me, or if you want to watch my eyes instead of watching the eyes, you just watch here. It's a little secret. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of On the Lawn with FVR. Today we have Peter. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, pleasure.
So we have been talking about many things, like what is going on with the building and the lights already on, or the sound. But most important, today is a holiday, right?
Yep, that's right.
So what are we celebrating here? It's like the birthday of somebody in particular, right?
Yes. Today is the king's birthday, the king
Oh.
of Malaysia's birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to give thanks to him for allowing us to record this episode in this particular time.
Good to be here.
Oh yeah, anytime. We wanted to do this episode for a while, and now that you mentioned in the pre-talk of the episode that you happen to have something, you're wearing something that is from other place. So, before we enter into that discussion, people may ask, who is the guest of today? So I would like to ask you, can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Sure, sure. I am one of the lecturers here, co-lecturer at the Asian School of Business. I'm in charge of the, I do the entrepreneurship course together with some of the more seasoned professors, and I am a practitioner when it comes to angel investing. I'm a shareholder of one of a company called NEXEA, and we are in early stage venture capital funding for startups. So that is me. A quick roundup. I used to be in a consulting firm for 20 years, and I was a group managing director for a few more companies before I joined NEXEA as one of the partners there. So the last 5 years pretty much with the startup industry, and of course with the Asian School of Business here, it's about maybe three years plus already.
We understand that that's only the tip of the iceberg, and we know that there is more than the eyes can meet. So I would like to ask you, how was the world when the young Peter was growing up?
Oh, actually I grew up in a small town in Peninsular Malaysia on the east coast. It's called Terengganu. I don't know whether you guys know. It's a very nice, slow paced city, and it's famous for their sandy beaches. Yeah, but growing up for me was quite a okay life. It was slow and everything was quite peaceful. Yeah, because I live a good life when I was younger.
Wow. So from that time, when you wanted to study, there were many options. So which were the things that made you say, I want to go that direction?
Oh, okay. I think in Malaysia, very much like in overseas, in UK, we have got I think second primary school and secondary school, and I pretty much grew up in that small town called Terengganu, and when it came to choosing the streams, being a very Asian parent, my parents said, no, you must be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, and so on and so forth. Because my father himself, my late father really, he was a doctor. So naturally he wants the kids to be me and my brother to be doctors, but we never liked that profession. But most of us, we stuck to the science stream very much. So, yeah. And so when it came to university, I actually did university in Australia. So those of you who are from Australia would know the Australian National University, and there I did accounting. So I didn't like medicine at all, so I chose to do something different. So I did finance.
Wow. So accounting in Australia, in which city was that in particular?
It's the capital of Australia called Canberra. So yeah, it's a pretty peaceful place. So I was very right at home there.
Now, accounting. A lot of people usually say that there's a lot of numbers, but it also needs certain kind of dexterity, especially to connect the dots among the three different income statements and all the other stuff. So, for people who wanted to adventure into accounting, but they didn't have enough motivation, what motivated you to go the distance in accounting?
Oh, okay. Since I was a young kid, I quite like business, and even when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, my father, he noticed that I really like business, and he started to subscribe a magazine that time. It was called World Executive Digest. He said, "Here you go and read," and I would read cover to cover. And I really like business, and think, look, I think accounting is it, because the numbers tells the story. And then I'm more of a numbers person, but how do I build the story from the numbers? And I start to dissect some of the numbers, and some of the stories, and try to write the figures out. So that was quite interesting for me. So I think for those of us who wants to be in the business field, you really need to know the numbers. I mean, even for engineers, you really need to know accounting. So I thought that was a good skill to learn, and I said, why don't we learn this skill and go for it?
So in that time that you were getting your first steps in accounting, what came after the university?
Okay, I think the university years was all in Australia, and after that I applied. I came back to Malaysia, and I applied for, that time it was called Price Waterhouse. So I said, okay, can't go wrong with Price Waterhouse. Although in commercial that time, the salary was much higher in commercial than in the accounting firms, because when I was much younger, the accounting firm seems to say that is a training ground. So they said, hey, if I am going to teach you accounting, then you should be paying us, but you're lucky that we pay you. So our pay was really low. But I said, never mind, we'll tough it out. And I joined that company called Price Waterhouse at that time. Yeah.
And that time, that long name became a short name.
Yeah, that happened in 1997, I think. I was fortunate enough to be sent to the London office of Price Waterhouse, and I remember it was 1st of July 1997, and I woke up and I walked to the corner shop in London near where we lived. My wife was there, and I looked at the headlines. They said Price Waterhouse has merged with Coopers. And that was a shock to me, because the first thing we always ask in the merger is that, do we still got a job?
That's a good question.
So on that Sunday, I called my superior. I said, hey, what happened on Monday? He said, don't worry, you still have got a job. So at that time, they named the company called Price Waterhouse Coopers, and then later they slammed into PwC. Yeah.
It's good that you mentioned when that situation happens, because when there is like a margin, all of a sudden you see the two variations of the stock going up and also the other stock going down in order to justify and eliminate any arbitrage, but also the labor. Many people that they don't want to be redundant, all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, do I still have it? So I believe there were people that still had some issues to say, can I stay or not? So what happened after?
I think in a merger situation or any takeover, there's always uncertainty. So the two companies, what they did very well was that Monday itself. They had a lot of interaction with us as the staff, and to make sure that our nervousness or our doubts were allayed. Yeah. So there was a lot of communication, and we are fortunate in the sense that it was a merger of equals. So there was no redundancy. But of course, in a merger situation, the difficulty is always in the two cultures merging at that point in time. So there was a lot of challenges, but there were a lot of interaction between the two companies and the two teams, so to speak. The Price Waterhouse side and the Coopers and Lyman.
Oh yeah, especially, and we're talking right now in the London office, and there were other offices as well. So I can imagine certain conflicts in other regional offices, like how we're gonna interact, especially when they are like in different parts of the city.
Yes, yes. So I remember in the London office we had quite a few offices around London. Just London itself, I think we had 4 or 5 offices, and now that you are merged, and who to be where, so that was quite an interesting exercise. And who's to head PwC? Is it this side or Cooper's side? So that was quite interesting. But in a merger situation, what is important is communication and to make sure that people's emotional needs are being met, because it's a time of uncertainty. It could be a time of uncertainty.
Oh yeah, uncertainty, especially because that was the time pre Y2K. It was right there in the .com bubble.
Yeah.
Um, Accounting was an elemental thing to say, okay, these firms are doing well, these are not doing well, and to have the alignment was very important. So that time, the .com bubble, what are you seeing during those times?
The .com bubble, at that time, everyone was quite worried, especially when it was coming to the year 2000, right? The Y2K. So a lot of efforts and a lot of businesses at that time were very worried what happens to Y2K, and a lot of businesses. It was good business for a lot of consulting firms, because companies wanted to prepare for it. Yeah, and a lot of new services, not only the accounting firms and the consulting firms, but other peripheral IT companies were also coming up. Then of course, then we had the .com bubble.
Yeah, I remember reading for those, the Oracles, the IBMs, the Compacts, everybody wanted to say, hey, they made our accounting, we are good. And it's like, we have this, and don't wipe it out, we are still here. So that was a good time from that point of view in the terms of the consulting and accounting business. Now, moving some years forward, there was another crisis, and you were still in PwC.
97?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was a bit lucky because the Asian financial crisis was, I think, 97, 98. I was fortunate enough to be, fortunate, maybe unfortunate, but fortunate enough because I was in London, so I was insulated from that financial crisis. However, it would have been good to be able to, maybe it's a cathartic experience, right? To be in a financial crisis and to help businesses here. And I remember when I was in London, there were a lot of uncertainty for Malaysian businesses there. And we had to help some of the Malaysian companies or the Asian companies to weather the difficulties of 97, 98. Yeah, it was quite a tough one.
Yeah. That's true. We remember reading about that because of what happened with the Southeast Asia region and all the things that happened, especially because there was a famous guy called George Soros trying to move things around. But that's part of a different time. Moving some years ahead, I need to ask you, in accounting and also consulting, where the knack for entrepreneurship and venture capital started to hit the door?
For me, actually, I always looked at accounting, and I was a tax guy. I always find that you must understand the customer's needs, And being a consultant, you must always bring new value, even in a boring setting like tax. But I found that there were things that you can do differently. Yeah. And I said, hey, how do we do things differently? And I begin to see during the .com days, right? I mean, before Y2K, people were coming in with new ideas. And I said, hey, how do we be at the forefront of this change? Yeah? So I started to be very interested in learning about new technologies, what other people are doing. So the immersion exposure that I had in the UK was very, very rich in that sense. So it sort of started the seed of entrepreneurship and also startup and the bug. We say, hey, we need to change. And the accounting world are not as fast when it comes to wanting to change. So that gave me the opportunity to try to be different from the other consultants in that sense.
I see, and that's how you began to develop that.
Yeah.
That in the end began to pay dividends.
Yeah.
So the London office of PwC, and we also have experience in the Malaysia office. Which other places have you been?
Well, when we were in London, I think the places we have been was, of course, London being the central. So I managed to see businesses up north in Manchester and Liverpool and all these places, and also in Bristol on the west side of London. So I traveled quite a bit when I was in the UK and got to see a little bit more of what the different regions were about and what were the new ideas. Because I'm a guy who always look at like what are the things people do differently. I mean, when I travel quite a bit, even in Malaysia, because Malaysia is quite central. So London is within the UK, right? So I didn't travel much outside the UK, but I took the opportunity to travel within the UK. But Malaysia is quite strategic because within 3 or 4 hours, you get a lot of cities in Asia. So I travel quite a bit on that, and I would like to say that I'm a bit unconventional. I mean, even the shirt I wear, I mean, I see it's different, so I buy it.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned that the shirt has a different design that is from Thailand, right?
yeah. So I like to commemorate some of my travels, with some purchase, but it's not normal one. So if I would say, hey, maybe I need a shirt, and I'll try to buy something which is really different and catchy, to me at least. Yeah. So the travels, I think for those of your listeners, I think traveling is really important because it opens our eyes. And if we think like an anthropologist, I think that's English, right? It's like learning about how people live. And if you have an open mind, you actually learn quite a lot. If you think like a kid, a 5-year-old kid, start to be curious, and you will learn a lot. In fact, a lot of ideas comes through observations and through travel. Yeah. But that is it's a mindset.
That's true. Talking about mindsets and talking about what we discussed of entrepreneurship, some of our classmates wanted to ask you indirectly, but I can extend this question. What are you seeing in the Malaysian ecosystem that there are certain demographics that are more prone to entrepreneurship than others?
I think when we look at entrepreneurship, especially in Malaysia, it's a situation where it's the bigger cities like Kuala Lumpur, you get more entrepreneurs because or startups, right? Entrepreneurship. In Malaysia, if we look at the startup scene, there should be around maybe 3,000 to 4,000 startups. However, it's all concentrated in Kuala Lumpur, largely because the private side of it, meaning that corporates, even business schools, are all concentrated in Kuala Lumpur. However, I'm sure there are other entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs outside of Kuala Lumpur. So the question I always ask myself is that, are there new ideas outside of Kuala Lumpur, and there could be entrepreneurs there, and how do we bring them and get them engaged and bring entrepreneurship out to them? Because here, entrepreneurship is in Kuala Lumpur at least is very strong and very vibrant. Yeah, because on top of that, the Malaysian government has put in quite a lot of money to nurture and the ecosystem. So you have got the entrepreneurs, the private money, and also the government initiative coming in to put this ecosystem together. However, what about the people outside Kuala Lumpur? Yeah? Penang is coming up, and also in Sarawak is also coming up. Where else we should have? Yeah? Because opportunity is where would lift a lot of people out of will improve their economic status. So we should, the government and us in the private sector, because I'm also involved in the Malaysian Business Angel Network, our job is to make sure that we do the awareness and education to make entrepreneurship mainstream. Yeah? And of course for us, making investment into startup mainstream. So the thing for the way we look at it is, I look at it at least, is that how do we bring the opportunity out to them? A lot of people have opportunity, that's why they progress. But those people who don't have the opportunity, they can't take themselves out. That is where we need to unlock the potential.
Unlocking potentials, unlocking communities, unlocking economies. That's how it should be. But it's sometimes harder to do it than only to say it. Now, we came across your journey in a PwC, and then you decide to make another move. So, what happened during those years?
Okay.
Why you decide to move, and where was it?
Okay, interesting question, Fabian. Because like I told you, like I was in PwC, but I felt that being a consultant, it was quite easy for us to say, oh, I recommend you do this, I recommend you do that. However, it was a situation where I said, hey, it's so easy for us consultants to ask people to do it. And I used to have customers or my clients keep on saying, it's easy for you to say this and that, but you know how difficult it is to implement some of the ideas or proposals that you're doing. So I thought, maybe my next challenge would be to take the plunge and go into commercial sector. So I went into the onto the other side, into commercial. So I was headhunted to join to join a company called RICOH. RICOH, as if you know them, is a Japanese company. It's in document management and also what do you call it, a photocopier company. Yeah. So that was a big challenge, because you are running the operations. It's not so much of being, in a sanitized consulting environment, tell people. So it was quite a tough one.
And it is a quintessential corporate question when people are running operations, like, what is my KPI?
Yeah, I think it was very different when you compare, if you look at KPIs and what you are supposed to achieve. There are various aspects of running a corporation, right? Of course, numbers are very important, but it was very much managing risk of the company and the people underneath it. How do you galvanize and excite the people for that vision? Yeah, because it's very different, because consulting is just you. I don't belittle it, but it's done very well for me. It's you have got to manage many aspects of the business. When you run a commercial organization, you got to look at it's almost like this, right? You are the boss, and you got to know marketing, you know, the sales, you got to do HR, you got to do finance, and so you are the ones who are in control of all those divisions, and you being the thumb, you are accountable and you're responsible for it. So it was quite an interesting setting, because these people here, it could be more now, 6 fingers, right? How do you manage them so that you would you make sure that the company grows. So it was a different thing apart if you were to compare it from consulting.
That's a fascinating point of view. Yeah, because otherwise, how can you know?
Yeah.
You only see something just from the website, but when you see it in real life, okay, that's how you manage
And
stuff.
I might just add that when I was in consulting, you are expected to know more and more of less and less. Say I was a tax guy, so I had to be like a specialist, right? Say for example, if I'm a doctor, I'm a bone marrow specialist, so I know more and more of less and less. What was quite difficult for someone who was extracted from a consulting who knows very deep down into general management. So you find that wow, I know a lot of other things. However, I don't know the in depth of a lot of things. So that was quite an interesting position. Yeah, and of course we got to manage the KPI as the boss. So how do you get the people to pull together to hit the strategic initiatives they call it? Yeah.
Talking about the strategic, how was it strategic for you to do this transition from outside consulting into what is the education and entrepreneurship?
So you mean that how do we turn ourselves into more entrepreneurship?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think many outside factors were hitting because when I was in the consulting firm, I was just one of the directors amongst many directors. However, when you are the head, the country head, you have got no choice, but you got to move ahead of your competition. So that's where the strategy came out, right? So the strategy means how do you position yourself to be better or in front of your competitors and bring new values, right? So therefore, because of the pressure, you as the leader must work with your team to come up with new values. And entrepreneurship is very important because it's the mindset. If the people don't have that entrepreneurship mindset, they'll just be doers. So my job was to make sure excite the other people and the people underneath to think like an entrepreneur. So think like entrepreneur means maybe to me was how do we bring new value, new ideas, so that we can create new values for our customers. Yeah. So it was a very different mindset where we had to actually go out to go and ask, to go and interact with our people. So we had to encourage our own people to go out to talk to customers, ask the customers, what is it that worries them? What is it that they look for? What is it that keep them awake at night? So that's where the entrepreneurship as a mindset. It's not. It's a label, but it's actually a term. How do I be entrepreneurship or entrepreneuristic? Right? So herein lies the mindset. How do you change the mindset of the people to be entrepreneurship? So you got to change the culture of the team. So from doers into entrepreneurship mindset.
Now you mentioned a keyword that in some institutions can be a little hard to move. Culture.
Yeah.
How difficult is to change the culture? Because that's something that most of the people in corporations are asking. Like, how can you modify the culture for the better?
Do you have 3 hours? No. Actually, culture is very. It's a very fluffy thing. It's not so much like financial, right? You just do this and it happen. This happen. Actually, the finance part. You say, oh, I'm in business to achieve profits. That is the result of it. But actually, if you look deep down, it's actually that people. You have to nurture the people, come out with new propositions, right? So, if you say I want to change the culture, and if you were to look at what culture essentially is, it's actually how people in your company or in your group or in your division think and act. So how do you get them to think and act the way you want it? So you got to link to the vision and the mission or all that thing. So people say, oh, it's very fluffy. And to be honest, the culture cannot be changed in one day, 1 month. It takes a longer time and very conscious and continuous effort to make sure that people understand why we are going this direction and bring them together. So it's almost like keep on communicating, telling the people and getting them to understand why are we going this way and why is this important to go this way and why they should follow you. So when you want to say, hey, this company has got a good culture, it means that people think and act in a certain way to achieve that objective. So what do we stand for? So that was a bit challenging, and in fact, in the dynamic business setting, the job of the CEO, whilst you have all these KPIs, is also to manage the cultural change, the transformation and change. And now the pace of change is very fast. It's even more dynamic, and you got to have your pulse on the business and to get people to change. That's why the entrepreneurship mindset is very important.
Now, the entrepreneurial mindset helps, but they cannot do it alone. And I also remember your words that you have been also a partner in this place called NEXEA for something called angel investing.
Yes.
So before we enter there, I need to ask, what is an angel?
Okay.
I'm not talking the
See
person with the wings.
An angel is I guess you can. There are many interpretations, and the way I look at it is a person who invests into early stage of a business. That's why it's called angel, because the banks are much later. But these are the angels who say like, I want to start this business, but I need an angel because nobody wants to help me. But people like investors who are early stage, they are mainly called angels because they take the risk and they are willing to help out those early stage entrepreneurs, if you like.
Sometimes they help entrepreneurial ideas, and they usually ask for yields or equities or things like that. Okay, one thing is an angel, another thing is an actual shark.
Yeah. I think, I think the shark is probably more of a commercial term where people say, hey, I'm the shark because there's a Shark Tank show. Essentially, they are people who actually put in the money or invest into the entrepreneurs, the startup entrepreneurs, and angels, like normal angels, they will coach the startups to grow, because the philosophy behind angel investment is that they give you the seed money and then they must grow the money, because angels, like it or not, we are not just benevolent, but we need to have a return. Right?
That's why it's called seed, because
Seed,
they
right?
want you to grow it.
So seed to grow. So how do we grow? We said, hey, dear entrepreneur, let us help you, and through our contacts and through our, hopefully our business knowledge, let us help you. So our role as an angel is to invest and to nurture the startups to come up and bring new value. Hopefully, at some point in time, we get to sell the company.
That's the exit.
Yeah, that's the exit. Yeah, to larger VCs or PE funds. So that is something which is foremost in an angel's mind. That's where the playing field that I play.
Now, that's a play field that everybody understands can be a little difficult to access because that's the name of the game. What about those entrepreneurs who wants to bootstrap their own companies?
Yeah.
And they have a hard line saying they don't want angel investing money.
I think if you look at entrepreneurs, there are many ways of raising finance, because the stress for an entrepreneur is always, where do I get the money from? Because you want to grow, you got to have funds, right? So either your parents are very rich where they will invest the money, or you go and find your own funding. So at that stage, the the banks are not ready. Yeah, because the banks don't take humongous risk. It's people like us who takes a lot of risk. Right? So those entrepreneurs who say, look, I don't want to get funding, they will have to bootstrap, of course. It depends on their business model. If the business needs a lot of funding, then he's got to go and find, she or he must go and find where it is. And then the question is that what type of funding? So
Exactly.
of course, yeah. So of course, you mentioned equity funding. So we will take a share of it, and then we coach you, or we means angels. Or the other one could be, hey, I'm going to get some funding. Now, we said the banks are not ready to fund you, so there are crowdfunding. That could be the three F's for for an entrepreneur. This is the friends. You can borrow from your friends, or you can borrow from your family, or it could be fools. So I joke because sometimes I think I'm the fool to loan some money to those people who actually are not good entrepreneurs. Right? But it's okay. We take the chance with that. So to the answer to your question is that those people who don't want to give equity, they can go for other ways of getting funds. But the more formal way is probably the peer-to-peer. And the cost of capital is really high.
Now, the following can be a little controversial because it can be a little of discussion between what is going on in Southeast Asia in particular.
Okay.
The SAFEs, SAFEs, and how some countries happens to be ahead instead of others. That will be one dimension in the race of getting funding, but also from the growth. There are places that are experiencing a higher pace of growth than others. And if you're an angel that wants to make your seed to grow, where you should go first?
So your question is that do you use safe agreements, right?
And when you should not use safe agreements.
I think there's no real when do we use it. I think the safe agreement is a mechanism for you to raise funds, right? So when you say, hey, you should use safe, right? Safe is just a matter of structuring it. The main thing it all boils down is that does that funding make commercial sense for both parties, for the investor as well as the entrepreneur. So I think if you say if safe is a good vehicle, yes, but in Malaysia it's not so prevalent.
Okay.
In other jurisdictions, territories, they may give you a bit more leeway when it comes to a safe agreement. However, it's just a mechanism for me. Yeah.
The other mechanism that I've seen is the minimum amount to write the check. Because we hear that, okay, there are places like south the border of this country that they only have a minimum, otherwise they would not give you the check. And then entrepreneurs go to other places that they are more willing to give. So it's in a subtle way saying to the entrepreneur you should go to other places. So when the entrepreneur should go or not?
I think if you compare to south of the border from Malaysia, their ticket size are higher, largely because the larger VCs and the angels and their currency, like it or not, it's stronger. Yeah. So their ticket size is much larger, and they don't wake up for a minimum amount of investment, right? So yeah, they do some of the startups. They do try to go to Singapore, and it's a matter of valuation. Valuation, but if you look at it, Malaysia and Singapore, if you compare those two areas, we still got quite a good set of funders. I think the people talk about funding winter and all that stuff. I think there's enough money to go around, especially in Malaysia, even in this region, for entrepreneurs to get money. So I don't think that you can't get funding here or Singapore. I don't think so, because if you have got a good business model and you got a good business and it makes sense to the investors, they would invest. So there's quite a lot of money floating around. Of course, they are more judicious when it comes to what they want to invest in and how much.
Now, if the business model is good, it should work almost everywhere. But at the same time, there is something that people are looking, growth, and there are certain environments that allows you to get a higher growth called accelerators. I heard about many of those, let's say Y Combinator, or let's say Antler, or the others. What are your thoughts about the accelerators?
Accelerators are very important programs, yeah, to test the entrepreneur and also to test the potential of the business. And accelerators, as you know, they're everywhere, and they are a very important cog in the wheel of building up the entrepreneurs and also their business. So my take is that, yeah, people like Y Combinator and so on, they have got a good formula. And as far as entrepreneurs is concerned, I would say amongst yourself, go and find these accelerators, participate in it, because that's where you get to learn from the best. And also the fraternity, when you are within that program, you get to interact with the other entrepreneurs. That's where the learning is much richer. It's something you can't get from a university in that sense. Yeah. So the role, if you ask me, the role of accelerators are super important in that sense. Yeah. So go and join Y Combinator and so on and so forth.
You hear it here first. Peter is saying go to Y Combinator, go to the accelerators. Now, talking about something that we both experienced, which is Disrupt Invest. I believe it was like a third year doing this for 5 years, and I seen the ecosystem going on. I want to hear from you, which are your thoughts about the growth of Disrupt Invest by NEXEA?
Okay, I mean, next year, easily when we have our accelerators, easily 1,000 plus people come in. It shows that the ecosystem, like I said, around Kuala Lumpur and its area is very vibrant. And in our efforts to promote the ecosystem, because for us, just think about it, we are all angel. And how do we make money, if you like, is that the deal flow. So the deal flow is important, right? Because if there are no deal flow, where are we going to spot the potentially good investments or startups, right? So it is where we build an ecosystem to nurture the startups and also have forums for them. Yeah, forums for them to interact. Can you imagine, like we're going to have one, another of the, I call it summit. I think back going to be in August, I think August or September. That's where we call it the Disrupt Invest team is coming in, and we'll get to invite, maybe we're going to go for about 1,000 plus attendees, right? So that's where we want to bring all the startups together so that they can interact, and of course during that day we will bring or showcase some of the cutting edge thinking that is coming out from, so that the entrepreneurs themselves can learn. So it's building the network and also a learning opportunity. So this is going to be, I think, our 4th year now for this Disrupt Invest.
That's quite an exciting
key
performance indicator.
Yeah,
because I saw that with my own eyes. Like, you see the people there, and it's like, what kind of deals can we get? Or I'm working on this, and they show you the QR code, and they show how the numbers are moving, and many good ideas that they need to establish the game and take it from there.
And for us, it is important for us to have this type of forums so that we can attract the best and brightest, so to speak, into our ecosystem, and then so that we can further build our deal flow.
Now, talking about the accelerators, talking about entrepreneurship, I want to ask you, what are you seeing in your interaction with the cohort of the Asia School of Business?
I think the Asia School of Business, if you look at the level of entrepreneurship and the level of thinking, it's really high. Okay, largely because of the education here and the exposure. Yeah. And many programs in the ASB are very practical, and I think very true to the ethos of the Asia School of Business and MIT Sloan is action learning. So if we look at the syllabus here and the programs here, I think you can attest to it. It's very much practical. Learn on the job. It's not so much of talking for 2 hours, yeah. But it's more of like I give you the theory, but quickly go and test it, go and check it out. So the interaction here for me, this is my third time coming to the fourth year as being involved in the entrepreneurship program. It's very rich, and I know some of you guys, the previous cohort, they have gone on to have that entrepreneurship mindset. So it's a fantastic program, if I may say so.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are telling the truth, right? There goes the accounting part that says like, okay, the story can be backed up and can somehow be projected, which is hopeful, I would say. And as we're moving forward, if somebody who is making a lot of money wants to become an angel, but there are so many angels, how can they differentiate themselves? Because that's going to be a good thing. Is the deal flow, is the type of investments? How did you find out?
Okay, I think the important thing is that an angel, like I defined earlier on, is a person who invests into a very early stage of a company, right? So whilst our job is to try to find out which are the good entrepreneurs or businesses to invest in, because a lot of times you are actually investing not only in the idea but very much on the entrepreneur herself or himself and the team around it, right? So on the flip side, you want to be a great angel. I think there are two things. One of it is that we need to educate ourselves as an angel as to what makes a good entrepreneur, what makes a good business model. And secondly is that if you have got experience in entrepreneurship or things, or you've gone through the mill, you really can be better at spotting those good opportunities. So angels are a lot. Like I said, money is everywhere. But the opportunity to make money, to spot it, me as an angel, I need to know, right? What is the good founder? Which is a good business model? Is Malaysia ripe? Is Asia ripe for this? Right? So that's where when you want to say, I want to be an angel, I got $1 million. I just say that if you're not ready to lose some of it and understand what is angel investing, just go and put it in the bank. It's safer. But you say no. I want to learn more. I want to have this probably supernormal return. How do I do it? I'll say, hey, you better be aware of what this game is all about, because this is risk money. Yeah? Don't put all your 1 million in there. Maybe put 10% the most, and then go and see which are the ones, and you could learn along the way. But it helps if you have got the entrepreneurship mindset or even the experience. Then you will know what to look for.
It's important that you mention this because, let's face it, in the region there is a lot of family offices, multi-family offices, hedge funds of funds that they're looking in angel investing and venture capital as alternative investments. So some of them usually have a financial background, but they don't have the entrepreneurial exposure. And that's a good question that you say. How do you identify the good founder or the good team so they can be confident with the risk they already assessed? In the end, is the spread of the risk, hedging the risk, because you only need to hit one or two
Yes.
to even out your bets.
Yeah.
But it's true, like this kind of education, it can only be done one part in theory, but then you need to go to the field.
Yeah. If you look at CVCs or corporate office and all this stuff, their money actually was made from the previous legacy. So it's from maybe brick and mortar, maybe the family was in, say, for example, oil palm or petroleum and all that stuff. So these are old monies. And like it or not, the world is changing so fast. So they are starting to realize that, hey, we need to bring new ideas in. You call it what you want to call it, innovation. That's nice things, right? You need to understand what is happening, right? And how does this entrepreneurs outside those startups or the new age thinking, like you say AI, how does AI come into our how do we benefit from us? Because the companies, they come from an old school. They are afraid. So they said, never mind, let's allocate some amount into my CVC and let's start to invest. Normally, they will not. They will probably follow more of the fund managers and they'll put it in funds of funds, like you say, so that they get to learn the benefits that they get to learn, they get the exposure, and they get to see maybe that new idea we can adopt and we can learn. Or maybe if I'm a rich guy or my company, I will acquire that startup, right? So yeah, CVCs is coming up. They are learning and they are treading quite slowly into the startup space. Largely is for their own learning, and also the other one to build the confidence. And the third one is how can we use this to benefit our own old business, because the old business, if you look at natural resources, it will run out, right? How can we use palm oil kernel, for example, to convert it into something else, right? Or how can we increase the yield using AI or even drones, for example, right?
Is it preservation of capital?
Yes.
Intergenerational capital.
Yes, and for them, for some companies, it's actually a matter of survival. Yeah, but it's still going good here. But in time to come, they have got to immerse themselves. So how do they do it? They say, hey, let's have some fun. Let's funds, not FUN, and invest together with the other funds so that we can learn.
You mentioned something, survival. And sometimes to survive, we need to make compromise. So across your journey, I believe you did one or two compromises. So I would like to ask, which was the most difficult compromise you did through your journey?
Actually, there are many decisions. I mean, I personally have invested in maybe 20, maybe 30 companies now. The difficult thing is whether when the startup or the entrepreneur is asking for more money, there's always a trade-off. Am I going to? It's almost like a bet.
Yeah.
Am I going to put in more money and risk it, or because I can't see the future? But I say I believe in the founder, and I believe in the business model. So the hardest part always is the due diligence, which you have got to go through to make sure that you are making a good decision. So everything has got a trade-off, the risk and the rewards. You don't know the rewards, but you need to assess the risk. So that's always a difficult decision for any angel, just like everything else, right? Yeah. There's a risk and rewards. Yeah.
It's very important how you laid it down, the term due diligence, because not many people actually do due diligence, let's be honest. Maybe because, I guess, in time of peace, people get soft and they don't want to do the grinding. or there is not so much information available. Okay, that can be done 40 years ago, not today when there is a lot of information. But the the art of doing due diligence, and this goes towards the accounting days when you were checking the numbers.
Yeah.
So how do you know you're doing a good due diligence?
Yeah, there are two parts to it.
Uh-huh.
There is the numbers. The numbers always tell a story. Even if you were to look at your own due diligence, you have got a view on things. I'm a numbers person, so we look at the numbers, but the numbers only tell half the story. So sometimes you need to listen to the entrepreneur in terms of, so what's your story, mate? So they have got to tell you, and then you double check with the numbers, right? And numbers only tell half the story because numbers are mainly historical. So how is it going forward? So there's a lot of trust and also gut feel. We don't. I don't succeed all the time. Like I said, it's don't spread your money 100% of that 1 million into startups. At the most 10%. But within that 10%, you may invest in 50 companies. Right? So that 2 or 3 companies will probably more than make up for it. So how do you get the 2 or 3, the good ones, to make up for the other which fail? Then that comes the due diligence. The due diligence, you do a financial due diligence and also a business due diligence. So at NEXEA, we have our team of analysts to scour the numbers and also to look at the business and who are the competitors and how big the market is. There's no point you invest in a company which is this big, but the market is already there. He's already 80% of the market, whatever is defined. Then the upside is very little, right? So yes, it's a good investment, but then it won't make you much money. What are you looking at? So the due diligence is important, numbers as well as the story. So whether it gels. I mean, you guys would have seen analyst reports from Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley when they look at the stock, right? There are always 3 things. They will tell you the numbers, the story, and then the valuation. All the 3 things. So each one of them, it goes into this circle. What is the numbers, what is the story, and what is the valuation? At the end of the day, that's what you're looking at, right? Yeah.
That's a paramount, because you really want to get the bigger returns.
Yep.
Otherwise, if you're investing in something that is already big, how different from the market really is. You better put your money in a index. And also how to assess the 3 dimensions of the story, because there is a lot to cover about behavioral finance or how an analyst can actually put some bias in the reports, but in the end, the 3 elements, they have to be aligned.
Yeah. If you look at all the analyst report, let's say for example, if you watch Bloomberg and all that stuff, so you got analysts talking about it, same story, same numbers, right? Same numbers. How come they got 3 different types of valuation or view on that company? It's how people interpret it. So that's the skill bit. So they either get exposed to it, they have got superior experience, or a good crystal ball. I don't know.
That's totally accurate.
Yeah.
Now, across your journeys and across different professions that you have, which were the little differences you saw in these regions?
I think for us, for me at least, I would like to, I know the Malaysian market better. So for me, comfort level is much more here, and I can control, because when I invest in a startup, I want to be able to call this guy, hey, Nicholas, come and let's chat, right? So for me, I'm playing more in the Malaysian space, right? But if you look at some investors which are like, for example, our neighbors down south, like in Singapore, and I know some investors in Vietnam, the difference is that they are very more Asian in ASEAN minded. Yeah? So that's a big difference. I haven't got that confidence yet. to learn a bit more about who are the regional players.
Okay. And what about that other place that they just happen to open nowadays, Hong Kong?
Hong Kong is a financial center, and a lot of funds are actually starting. They are always very hungry for deals here. In fact, some of our startups here, they are being looked at by the Hong Kong funders, which is good, because that gives them a lot more exposure. See, for Hong Kong fund or even Singapore fund, when they invest in local startups in Malaysia, the Malaysian entrepreneurs get a lot of exposure into the region as well. So that is good. It is something which Malaysian startups or Malaysian VCs don't have enough of that network. This is my own personal feeling. Yeah? Because largely we don't know enough, and maybe we don't have the enough context. I don't know, but for us it's more comfort level. We still make very good returns from Malaysia, and why need to go outside when we can do it in Malaysia? But of course the next segment would be everyone must think a little bit more, because Malaysia is just a small market.
This is something that we discussed in the class with Professor Cherian about the beauty of the bond market in Malaysia, because they have the capacity to repurchase the bonds to fund infrastructure like the one we see here. And compared to Singapore, which is the equity market, which is most of the money is actually on the outside. And when we mention about how angels can actually make the best returns by looking for startups nobody has heard before, but they know because they heard about the founder, they heard about the team, they trust this Malaysian startup can actually go the distance. That is insightful, especially because the region itself is growing up and is growing stronger. Now, given that we have heard part of your story, I remember you were also doing some workshops as well here in the innovation floor, which is with the Angel Association of.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more about that.
Okay. What's keeping me busy also is that I want to give back to society. Sorry, this is a bit of advertisement, but I believe that there's a lot of awareness and education that needs to be done for the startups, to get funded, and that would be the people like the angels, the high net worth individuals, and now corporates are starting to come in. So there is this association called the Malaysian Business Angel Network, which we have about 350 high net worth individuals, and also maybe about 30 corporates who are all members now. So what we do as an association is to do awareness and education, to educate angel investors. It can be individuals now with corporates, as to what angel investment is all about, what the startup business is all about, startup world is all about, because it's very different from your brick and mortar. Right? So that's what we always have, this frequent workshops and also talks to educate our members and the general public. And then you have attended this also. So to get them to be aware and to be confident enough to say, hey, you know what, I think I understand enough now to invest in a startup. But we always say, get the awareness and education up. So our association, the Malaysian Business Angel Network, that's our role. It's non-profit, it's merely to give back and for the ecosystem development.
Oh yeah, and we can go hours and hours talking about which are the good stories that came out from the NGOs and how giving back to the society. But I believe there's going to be some John Peters watching this, and there's going to be other people as well trying to learn more about you. The question I want to ask is, what kind of advice, what piece of advice will you give to your younger self?
If I were maybe 30, 40 years more younger, right, I would have been more, I should have been more adventurous, in a sense, earlier on. Be more curious, be more immersive in trying to learn more, and go out and talk to people. And I think opportunities are all outside. It's just that we ourselves tend to be more comfortable. I was, like I said, I grew up, I was in a very nice environment and no need to stress out. Yeah. But if I had that mindset, that thinking of being curious, always curious at a younger age, of course, I would have been. It would have been a better life. Not that I regret anything, but it's more of be curious and go out and talk to people, and you'll discover a lot more.
I cannot find a better way to end this episode on such a high note. Thank you very much for doing this, man.
Yeah.
How people can find you?
I'm on LinkedIn and also Facebook. Peter Wee. I think there's very few of us with that name.
Oh yeah, man. Take care, man.
Okay.
For the people out there, take care and see you when I see you. Bye. That's it.